Right.
Everybody. Okay, hello. We are facilitating tonight, and this is our first time, so be gentle with us.
I'm Amber.
I'm Storm.
Nice to meet you.
First, we'll go over the non-verbal hand gestures. When you agree with someone, do this. If you're kind of not sure, you go like that. If you're like no, you do that. And then there's point of process where you can.
This is point of process.
This is point of facts where you can interrupt someone with a fact about what they're talking about. This is point of process, which means someone's getting off topic and you want to get back to what you guys are mainly talking about. This is a block. This means that, no, we're not going to get into that right now.
No, on the proposal.
Okay. Alright, so, working...
Oh yeah,
wrap it up.
Just like politely.
Okay, working groups.
Alright, so we'll start with the working groups. Do we have anyone from media / the public relations group? Any announcements? Alright, technology.
Technology is streaming. We're going to be moving the charging solar array and power pack over closer to this new canopy tomorrow. It's still going to be here, so if anybody just notices that it's not there, just look to the other side of the camp.
Environment. Angela, you want to talk?
Sure, whatever falls there. We went to Penn State yesterday for an anti-fracking rally, which was cool. It was about 6 of us from Lancaster. There wasn't a huge turnout, but made some contacts and learned some things. Got 2 DVDs about fracking that I have to watch, but they should be pretty informative. We are still going to Trenton on Monday. The Delaware River Commission's vote was canceled, which is a victory because they were probably afraid that it wouldn't pass. So I guess like fracking is still safe or not happening until they pass something. So they don't know when they're going to have a vote again later. They didn't postpone it for a specific date, they just canceled it. There's still an action on Monday in Trenton, some speakers and a march to the state building. So we're leaving from F&M in front of the admissions building. We have a 15-passenger van. Once I can drive a car, we might be able to get somebody else to drive if we need additional transportation. But we're meeting at 8 a.m. on Monday and getting back around 4 p.m. If you want to come, just tell me and we'll make sure you get a spot and pack a lunch and dress warm.
We're meeting here?
We're meeting at F&M in front of the admissions building, which is on the corner of College and something new.
Alright, food? Not any food updates. Okay. Outreach?
The Quakers will be here at 1 o'clock. They will be doing a teach-in on Quakers and social justice. So this will be a good way to get them involved and learn more about what they're about. Part of the Faith into Action
Is this
series.
tomorrow at 1?
Tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Yep.
Camp logistics.
Today we had a meeting at 3 o'clock concerning the events that happened yesterday. We decided that we are going to keep following the rules of the permit and respect that we have it still. But for now on, if anything is going to be built, that it should come to a GA first and be voted on, and we should go over the permit, make sure we don't violate anything. Also, I know the fire marshal or someone came through today to inspect our camp and it passed. The only thing that he was concerned about was smoking in the tents or outside or around the tents, and we had cleared that up that we have 2 smoking spots and that he just wants to enforce it.
The only thing I heard him say was that when he first showed up here, there were a lot of people smoking here and over there. I know the camp has sort of said a thing that if there's a small amount of camp people, then they wouldn't enforce the smoking thing, but...
That was nighttime, and we decided against that.
Okay.
The only other place that we can smoke is if you're on the picket line.
Okay. So that's what he said. He said there were people smoking here when he first got here, and that's all he said. He's so.
And also, did you want to talk about the new layout for the camp?
Yes, I did, and I was looking for the diagram and couldn't find it. We discussed in the camp meeting this morning changing the way we're using the park and basically just pulling back into the corner of the two walls here and clearing this corner. The stuff has been piling up here. Some of it is us, some of it is people just dropping off stuff when there are not a lot of people around. We'll pass this around. It's basically a really rough drawing of the corner here. The darker black lines are the walls here, and you can kind of see where the path is. The idea is it's a triangle, but kind of a circle, but basically to have all of the tents with their entrances facing the inside so that it's easier to see who's coming and going from the tents, and it makes it easier for security to just have to be at the entrance of that circle and watch who's coming and going. So we've got some other plans for a warm space for safety to be hanging out, for peacekeepers to be able to watch what's going on without having to be patrolling. So as we move into colder weather, that's going to be important.
And we'll also still be using this part, just we can still have our GAs in this area, but just have it open because it's still a public park. We don't want to just completely be like shutting everyone out. So.
Would you want to try and do that tomorrow? Have that finished by tomorrow?
Not completely finished, but I think we should try to make some more good progress on that tomorrow morning. Like after the camp meeting, if we could just spend a couple of hours, definitely try to get this corner cleaned up before Monday, which would mean moving the solar stuff, moving that tent, and removing all of the stuff that is currently, and we're going to try to do some of that tonight after GA as well.
Do we have, or can we have copies of the permit on site? So, okay. Just,
After the fire marshal got here, so the thing about the yurt canvas, it has to have a special like NFC or something, some national fire code. So I'm looking into what type of thing we can cover the yurt with that would be allowed. I think the canvas that I was planning on using will not be allowed to do it because I don't think it's NFS or whatever it's called. So I'm looking into it. I still think I can sort of go with my plans of buying the wood like this week and start building the frame, but the cover is now going to be a problem, I think, but we'll figure it out as we get to that. But I'm looking into different things that we can cover it that already has that approval, and I don't know what that is, so I have to do a lot more research, or else they're not going to let us put it up. So.
Is that any more on camp logistics? All right. Action. Health and wellness. Discussion and debate. Facilitation. We are new facilitators.
Oh, Saturday at 3 o'clock, we'll have another facilitation training. If this passes tonight, if the proposal does pass tomorrow, we'll try to have 2 next week. We'll for sure have 2 next week, since part of it is the people that are point person have to be trained as facilitators. So we'll have 2 next week, and then if it passes tonight, we'll set up tomorrow. I'll tell you when the next one will be, but for sure Saturday 3 o'clock facilitation training.
Question on that? Can I ask when I was there? Can I ask who was at the meeting and who is now a new facilitator? Us 3. Okay. Peacekeepers.
We are good for 11 to 3, but the 3 to 7 dropped out for the night. Is there anybody willing or able to do that?
3 to 7. How many slots?
2 preferably.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Education. Mutual aid. Arts and crafts. Ambassadors. All right.
Okay, so we do have a proposal to,
I think I missed action.
Yeah, it was in there. Go ahead.
I am not part of the action group, but I am taking action.
There will not be a march tomorrow at 11 a.m., but Monday at 11 a.m. we're gonna meet here and march to Bank of America and stay as long as people feel like staying and then come back. So just let everybody know.
Like we're not doing that every day.
Huh? Yeah, I think we're gonna start it on Monday. The weekend was kind of a rough time to start that. But, and one more thing, I'm also gonna have a meeting for community committee now that I feel better and I'm not sick. Monday at 3 o'clock.
What is that?
Community committee. Basically, I want to get something going where we go around the city and do volunteer work, like picking up trash, recycling bottles, maybe working at the homeless shelter, cooking meals, or whatever volunteer work that we can do for the community. But I just need people to help me organize it, so that's what the meeting at 3 is for on Monday.
A question about the 11 a.m. march. I know we're calling it a march, but is it a non-permitted march like the one that we had after our original rally? And do you intend to obey all of the traffic laws?
Yes.
Stay on the sidewalk, obey
Yes.
crosswalks, all
And
that?
leave room for people to walk on the sidewalk as well.
Great.
Any other working group? Right.
Just general announcement.
No other working group announcements? All right, general announcements?
Should we take SAC?
No, I think it's just one by one.
All right, we'll go from right to left.
Tomorrow at 11 a.m., James Street Mennonite invited a couple of us to go over. So I would need 2 or 3 people to come with me who's ever interested, talk to them. It's a Sunday school group and they're curious about Occupy Lancaster. And they did mention something from a Christian perspective, but they want multiple perspectives there. So I would probably speak from the Christian perspective, having grown up in the Mennonite church. But again, anyone who's interested, come see me afterwards. If you're interested in going to James Street tomorrow morning, we'd have to be there by 10:45.
Ben?
I'm also not part of the action committee. Maybe if somebody could let me know when that meets, that would be good, because there's an action that I'd like to start working on. And anybody who is interested in working on an action with me, you can come talk to me after the GA. When does that committee meet?
There isn't a scheduled time that we've been meeting, but I think there is going to be a meeting soon specifically about December 15th, 16th, and 17th that we'll be meeting.
Thanksgiving dinner is going to be here at noon, provided by New Hope Community Center. All right, any other general announcements? All right, we'll move on to our proposal.
I do want to point out that we didn't have a vote.
Oh, that's true. All right, should we do it now? No, it's a little late.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna. Should we go over the voting?
Yeah.
We have a sign right here. This is how voting works. So thumbs up, you agree. Thumbs down, you do not agree. Thumbs to the side, you're standing out of the vote. Your voice is not being counted. And a block is a very serious matter. You use it whenever this violates the ethics of the group. And that would block the proposal from going forward. So we're going to state the proposal. We're going to talk about clarifying questions about the proposal, concerns, and then friendly amendments. We'll go over that again. State the proposal from Ben.
Or just anyone from the structure group that wants to.
Yeah, he's gonna.
Yeah, anyone.
You can stand up.
So, I think most of you are probably familiar with the proposal that we've been working on. It's for an organizational structure for Occupy Lancaster. We brought it to the general discussion meeting on, what was that, Tuesday?
Yeah, but I brought it to general discussion 3 times total.
I think 4 of us, there were a couple meetings and 4 of us have helped write this together on Google Docs. Based on the last general discussion meeting that we passed this around at, there are still some items that need to be added to this, but we feel like the core of what we're proposing is solid, and so it's worth proposing what we have at this point. But I'd like to just make it really clear that I personally am putting this forward with the intention of continuing to work on this and bringing further proposals to fill in some of the holes that are missing from it. But I think that, like I said, the core of it seems to be intact. Sorry, I don't have copies for everybody. We'll make sure that it's on, whether it passes or not, we'll get it on Facebook by tomorrow morning. I guess I should read the whole thing.
Or if you could summarize it, maybe go over like the structure of it, and then you can talk about things individually or something.
What does everybody think about that?
I think we should go over the structure and then the specifics. I think the specifics are going to be.
I think you need a general idea of what it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me read the goals of the proposal. That'll help summarize it. The structure working group intends to cooperate with all members of Occupy Lancaster to create a structure that will, 1, facilitate easier and better communication between individuals and groups. 2, eliminate the potential for individuals to suffer from burnout as a result of poor organization and cooperation. 3, allow new members to participate in the process more easily. 4, emphasize that the General Assembly is the heart of our decision-making process. And 5, to empower work groups to identify and execute projects that benefit the group as a whole.
Can you say that last one again?
To empower work groups to identify and execute projects that benefit the group as a whole. So essentially we're proposing a structure for our organization that balances power between the General Assembly and the work groups. The General Assembly would stay as it is right now, as it's functioning right now, and be our sort of core governing body. We would condense all of the work groups that we have right now into 4 working groups, and the working groups that exist now would essentially become like committees within those working groups. Under the proposal, work groups have a lot of authority over themselves and the way that they operate, including the designation of 2 different positions. One is called the point person, and the other one is spokesperson. Point person is a 2-month term. The process of designating a point person is completely up to the working group. The point person has several roles, which I will read. The point person is responsible for the following. 1, making sure that someone is scheduling the working group's meetings and publicizing the meetings. 2, coordinating the schedule of spokespeople for announcements at the General Assemblies. 3, facilitating or making sure that there's a facilitator for each work group meeting. 4, making sure that there is a minute taker for each meeting and that minutes from every meeting are being posted to the forums on our website. And 5, this is again about the term length. For each person is 2 months. At the end of 2 months, a new point person should be chosen by the working group. Nobody should be elected as a point person again until everybody participating in the working group that's interested in serving in that position has had a chance to. And the last thing is, which is actually not written on here, but we talked about this the other day, was that every working group has some sort of like handbook that explains what it is that they're involved in doing, has lists of like passwords for websites or Facebook pages or combination locks or anything, and it's the point person's job to make sure that that is getting updated, every 2 months. The point person has to be trained as a facilitator, and again, this is also not written in here, but we talked about this a lot. We're not saying that work group meetings need to be facilitated, but we're suggesting that the point person be trained as a facilitator, so that if there's a breakdown of friendly process in a working group meeting, there's always somebody who's trained in facilitating the meeting. Obviously, they have to be willing to act as the point person. They have to be empowered by the working group, and again, the working group can decide how they elect point people. And then just a reiteration of the 2-month term and the rotation of willing members. The other position is the spokesperson. Spokesperson is the person whose job it is to report in during the designated time slots at the GA for each working group. And so this will slightly change the working group reporting section of the GA. There will only be 4 of those, and the spokesperson's job will be to report on any of the work that their group is doing or any of the subcommittees that are part of their group. We did say on here that ideally, just to keep things moving, the spokesperson would be the only person, speaking during the report-in time. But again, like anytime, that we need to have discussion, the spokesperson can refer to somebody else who's working in their group. There's no parameters for who can be a spokesperson. It should just be somebody who's participating in the working group. It can be a different person at any General Assembly. Working groups don't have to report in at every General Assembly. And the point person, one of their jobs is to make sure that anytime there needs to be a report in at the General Assembly, there is somebody who has been assigned or empowered to do that. Neither of these positions are leadership positions, and one of the big holes in this proposal that we talked a lot about at the last general discussion was how to handle the point person position. Particularly is a position that could lend itself to people becoming a little bit dominating in the group. So we talked a lot about different ways of creating a process for removing a point person and what would actually necessitate that happening. That's not in this proposal. I didn't feel comfortable working on that myself. I think that that's something that a group needs to work out. So I think that's something that we should relatively quickly amend to this proposal. The last thing is, and again, this is also sort of vague in this proposal, but there's some stuff in here about it, that working groups are empowered to make certain decisions without consulting the General Assembly. And that's obvious. Camp Logistics has things that they do. Every time somebody takes out the trash, they don't have to come and consult the General Assembly. Or media, every time they put something on the Twitter feed. But we had talked about each working group having a mission statement, and that is in here, that each working group should have a mission statement. And somehow the mission statement should broadly imply what working groups have the authority to do without consulting the General Assembly. If there's ever a case where people are not sure whether they should consult the General Assembly, the general discussion should be used as a forum. And that also isn't super clearly worded in here, but it is implied. So that's another thing that I think we need to word more clearly and get into proposal form. I think there's also a few things in here that basically just define what a working group is, and I'll just go through those real fast. An officially empowered working group must have 1, a reason for existing that benefits Occupy Lancaster. This reason has to be explicit and explained at the GA. 2, a mission statement. 3, regularly scheduled meetings, a minimum of 1 per week, and ideally at the same time and place. This is going to make it easier for new people to plug in. My hope is that we have a board at the info tent that lists all of the different working groups, the time of their regularly scheduled meeting, and the point person with their contact information. 4, an assigned point person. 5, an assigned spokesperson at relevant GA meetings. 6, a handbook that details all relevant information about the working group. 7, an official working group has to be proposed to and ratified by the General Assembly. The proposal has to contain all of the preceding 6 items. So instead of going, I want to start a blah 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 working group, you're coming to the General Assembly saying, I want to start a blah 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 working group. I've already got people willing to work on it. We've set a schedule time. We have a mission statement. We have already voted on a particular point person, etc., etc. So that when the proposal comes to the GA, the working group is basically fully formed already.
I just want to add in, if a new working group fits in under one of the 4 spokes that we have, it will just become a committee and it would be a lot easier. If it's a brand new working group that does not fit under one of the 4 larger headings, then you would have to have all those things. If you're starting a new working group that does fit under one of the larger headings, you'll fall right in and just sort of work with that group.
And also on that note, each working group has the authority to form as many subcommittees as they want, as long as it is relevant to what they're doing. That doesn't have to be brought to the GA. And hopefully, you know, work groups get to the point where there are so many people that some of those subcommittees could be like split off and actually become official work groups.
You gonna talk about the 10 days?
Yeah, that's the last thing on here. Oh, one more thing. Each working group, if this is ratified, gets, again, a time slot for announcements at the GA, a forum page on the Occupy Lancaster website, a Google phone number that will be linked to the point person's phone number, and an email account. So that does imply that there would have to be, for the tech people, we'd need to like condense some of the forums on the website. So for implementation of this proposal, this is what we wrote. Within 10 days of the ratification of this proposal by the GA, each working group must complete a reorganization based upon the guidelines that I've suggested and present the results of their work to the General Assembly. Participants of the structure working group will volunteer to aid each individual working group in their restructuring. Within those 10 days, the structure working group will create a handbook that will contain all of the information within this proposal for the purpose of transparency and accessibility of structure and function within our movement. That last thing, creating the handbook, I would like to propose a slight amendment to that, which is that we bring forward another proposal with all of the kind of gaps in this before we actually finish creating like a whole handbook that has all this information. That's all I have.
I feel like it is verbally finished. I feel like the only thing that is the wording of it. I feel like we verbally have finished the document. I feel like it just hasn't been put on paper. It's really difficult to actually put something that you say on paper, but I feel like it's verbally a finished proposal. I feel like what Ben is saying is that the finished working proposal that we typed up is not completely finished, but I feel like it is verbally a finished thing for me. So I know it's a long proposal, but I think we're supposed to restate, but
Yeah, well, I think we should just go through clarifying questions because I think there might be a decent amount of those.
I have a few.
Okay. And this is just clarifications, right? Like information based, not concern.
Could we keep a minute notebook here at camp? Maybe make copies of the notes so the groups can still have their notebooks, but keep copies of those notes here. So, I mean, if in case we don't have access to the internet, at some point in time we could just go look in there and see what's going on. Okay. And at GAs, if a spokesperson doesn't report something that's important to a subcommittee, could the spokesperson or the point person for the subcommittee bring that up or add to their report?
Can they bring that up as a general announcement? The only reason I say that is because what's happening now is you have 10 people in 10 different sections saying, oh, and this is outreach too, and this is outreach too.
Before we get into this discussion,
Yeah, it's an amendment.
Okay.
So let's just go over, like, people might need to understand what he's saying. So we ask any
Anyone
questions.
just confused about it in general. 'Cause the
Like,
first
wants
time
to
I
hear
heard it, I was
something
like,
again. Like, I didn't hear about the 4 spokes very well. Could we go over those?
The 4 spokes?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I actually didn't go over that. Alright, so condensing the existing working groups, we're gonna have 4 spokes. The first one's we're calling public relations. The current work groups that would fall under that are technology, media, community outreach, and ambassador. The second, yeah. You don't have to write this all down.
I have a copy.
Yeah, we can give you a copy of all this. The second one is operations. And the current work groups that would become the committees of operations are structure, facilitation, and finance. The third work group is action, and the committees would be direct action, education, and issues and demands, which for example, environment would fall under issues and demands. But again, these are like, once these 4 working groups are actually passed, the working groups have the authority to reorganize these subcommittees or do away with them however they want, or call them whatever they want. The 4th one is camp logistics, and the current committees are peacekeeping, kitchen, mutual aid, health, sanitation, and town planning. And one of the things that I like about that is it basically empowers, it keeps, hopefully it keeps a lot of camp logistics stuff out of the GA and empowers the camp logistics to be their own functioning working group that can make decisions about the camp themselves.
All right, so clarifying questions again. Stack keeper would like to go.
Me?
Yeah, have you been, I don't know.
I've been kind of, also I don't have a pen and paper. I can kind of do this in my head.
Yeah.
But if I'm missing anybody, just like, I won't be offended if you're like, hey. So, Katie, you spoke.
Yeah,
so,
let somebody else go first.
Over there, what's your name?
My name's Jody.
Jody.
So you mentioned the point person having to take turns. So is there some sort of like term limit for the point person?
2 months.
Okay. And then so that does the point person need to attend each committee meeting, or I guess they just get like announcements from the committee as they go to the PA? Or do they have to be involved in those committees?
The spokesperson and the point person ideally should be 2 different people. That's not to say that if there's nobody else that can make it to the GA that the point person can't be the spokesperson. Basically, the point person's job is to be responsible for making sure that the working group is functioning and to be the contact for that working group. But they can delegate any of the tasks that we're assigning them here to other members of the working group. It's just that if there's a breakdown in function or organization, the point person is who the GA can go to and say, why isn't your working group doing anything right now, or you know, what's the problem?
I think my question is kind of similar to hers. Am I next? Oh, okay, never mind. Should I continue? Or something? Okay.
No, I got you, and then it's gonna.
Okay. If you're part of a subcommittee, do you have to meet with the subcommittee and the working group, both of those, or do you just stay within your committee? Because
that's again up to the working group. But
okay.
the hope of condensing the current working groups into fewer working groups is that we'll be facilitating more interpersonal communication and working together more closely.
Okay.
He's got a cast.
Yeah, it's just a cast.
Oh.
Josh. Okay. Oh, just with the Google phone, is that a number attached to only one phone?
Talk louder, Josh.
The Google phone number, is that attached to one phone, or is that something that can rotate to?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the way a Google phone number works is, or the way it would work under this proposal is that we would have 4 Google phone numbers, and those numbers would stay the same.
Yeah.
And you can link it to any cell phone and remove it, or house phone or whatever. And so at any time you can switch it back and forth. So you could work out some sort of schedule, like I'm available to be a contact person on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then on Tuesday and Thursday you can switch it to the other person, and the number will forward to whatever you have it, whatever cell phone number you plug into it.
Stormia.
And to respond to what Katie asked, I feel like that if you, like, say you are in, like, camp logistics in general, but then you're kind of just doing one, like, small thing, like, committee underneath that you should go to the camp logistics meetings, because that's the whole reason why we're having the structure thing, so that we're all in better communication with all the working groups.
Okay, I was just making sure it was clear.
Alright, point of facts.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Sorry.
I
I
had a
actually
point of
just
fact.
have a question, just for all of our purposes. Can anybody here that was on the structure team just raise their hand? It seems like a lot of people are answering questions. Okay. All right. Okay.
Point of fact about what Storm was saying. The way I envision it again is that, like, if a working group starts getting really large, like say there's 20 people in a working group, at that point it's not necessarily that important that members of all of the individual subcommittees come to every working group. And a new structure can be created within the working group to figure that. But that's again entirely up to the working group itself.
I think one of the reasons we did this in the first place is because one person is working on one thing and no one is actually talking to each other. So we did it on purpose. So yes, so you have a larger group to actually bounce ideas off of. So if you're part of that larger group, and even if you're in one subcommittee, you're part of a larger heading and you will be able to speak to a lot of people.
Are there more people on stack for clarifying questions?
No, stacks.
And anyone have any more clarifying questions before we move on to concerns? All right, any concerns with the proposal as stated? Yeah?
I'm concerned about term limits because just thinking about the last month specifically, it's very hard for people to follow through and commit, and so maybe that's a solution to it. But I'm also worried that someone might commit to 2 months and then say, I'm going to New York for 4 days, I won't be around. Well, wait, you just committed to 2 months as spokes or point person or whatever.
So that right there is what we had fairly extensive conversation about at the general discussion meeting that I feel like that's not in here yet. Like, what happens if a point person isn't doing their job? We haven't worked that out yet.
And to, like, right on top of that, I also I feel like 2 months might be kind of a long time considering we've only existed for 1 month. Like, maybe if this was like a movement that we'd had for years, like, I don't know, I just think 2 months might be a little bit long.
And within the structure that we've created, we set 2 months, so it's not too little bit of time, but it's not like a crazy amount of time. And what Curtis was saying, that's why there's a way to get to within the working group to instate a new person at any time. And that's something that we haven't figured out. Maybe each working group would figure that out. Like if somebody wants to step out, like, oh, this is too much for me, I'll step out. Same thing would happen with term limits. Say we try 2 months for the first 2 months, and that seems to be way too long. We can easily amend that to be a month. I mean, I think it's a good starting point because it's not too long and it's not too far. If it seems like it's way too short or it's way too long, that's the easy amendment to it.
I have some comment to that. I mean, it could be up to 2 months set by the working group because, like, maybe some work groups need longer. Like, you don't want to switch point person all the time because there's a lot of information. It might be hard to switch around. So it could be up to the work group, but say not to exceed 2 months because then it's like over. It's going to be too much power. And also, also, like, if someone goes away for 4 days, they could potentially just delegate, like, give the Google phone number to someone else and just delegate, like, I'm going to be gone, but they're still kind of responsible, like, taking responsibility to put in place a contact person, a spokesperson, who may be that responsibility.
Do we have other concerns about anything else? Yeah.
I have a concern about access to the General Assembly and how this is going to limit committees' access to GA if the working group doesn't think that a committee's concern or proposal, or whatever committee wants to do, is important enough to take to GA or disagrees with it. What is the method for an individual or a committee to still have access to the General Assembly?
I have the same concern, and I think for me the reason I didn't work something into this is because I'm also concerned about like micromanaging. I don't want to impose too much structure, but I think that the language that we've created about a point person's responsibilities clearly imply that it is their responsibility to be collecting all relevant information from any subgroups, making sure that that information is being presented at the GAs by the spokesperson. And the other thing which I kind of alluded to before is, you know, we have a good like conversational structure in our GAs. So if there's a work group report in, and you know the facilitators realize that the group needs to have a more extensive conversation about whatever's being reported on, then there's no reason why anybody from that working group shouldn't be allowed to speak. But again, I think that in my mind, that's kind of covered by our facilitator training and the fact that we're empowering people to be sensibly running these meetings.
So that doesn't completely satisfy my concern.
The way the structure is set up, the committees can run right now semi-autonomously within the group. It's all based on the group. Say Camp Logistics, for example, if peacekeepers would stay semi-autonomous to mutual aid, I mean, they wouldn't have to, they wouldn't really. So the way I feel like we set it up is the point person doesn't say, oh, I don't think that's relevant. That's not the job of the point person or the group to say what's relevant and not. It's to report what camp committee's doing. It's like a reporting body. I don't feel like it's a way to be like, oh no, I don't think we need to do that. I mean, there's no language in there, and there's no even like.
But in the eventuality it happens, what is the process? I am a subcommittee. I brought something to the point person. The point person said yes. I'm at General Assembly. That's not happening. It's not being said. What is the process to do that?
I think General Assembly is the process.
So that's point of process. My spokesperson was made aware of this, and they're not addressing it in the General Assembly.
I feel like maybe if it's the first time that happens, you could bring it up to your working group. If that feels like it's continued to happen, the larger body, which is the General Assembly, is the best place to bring something like that up, because we have the last, sort of, all of us collectively have the last say in what's happening. I feel like that's an internal thing that might be happening, and that could be a power struggle thing that's happening. So maybe you bring it up to your working group first, and then you bring it up to the General Assembly, and then we can work on it there. Because that's sort of the way we would make decisions anyways if something like that was happening.
Art, I agree with your concern, and I'd be happy to work with you to try to create language for like the second round of proposals on this. Yeah.
Michelle.
Just hearing the answer to that, I'm kind of confused a little bit more now. It just seems like that would be a longer process. That if there's something that you wanted brought up that night and it wasn't brought up, to have to wait until the next meeting to tell your group they should have brought it up, I think that's kind of a waste of time. I mean, can something be put in saying right away if you want to make that point?
Well, for me, the point person wouldn't be here. I mean, or wouldn't be speaking. Your spokesperson would be here. So it's not like I don't know. I really a little am confused, kind of, because what I'm hearing is a committee would be ignored somehow. Is that what's going on? Somehow what you wanted to say wouldn't be, because the point person wouldn't be able, like, we've set it up so there will be a spokesperson here. So say the committee wanted to say something, that they would just go to the spokesperson and say, this is what I want said tonight. The spokesperson has no authority in that. He's just literally a voice for the committee. I don't see how it could be a problem, since the point person and the spokesperson are different people, and you're listening to the spokesperson at the General Assembly. So anybody from the working group could come up and say, oh, I forgot to do this. I don't know. I mean, it could be a point, I guess, but I don't see.
Delia? I think maybe people are feeling like now only one person is allowed to speak, or 4 people are allowed to speak, and so what happens if they're abusing that power or not listening to what they're supposed to be speaking about, and then, like, can we speak at that meeting if I'm part of a work group? Like, how do I bring it up? Can I just, like, break the process and say, yo, this really needs to be addressed and this isn't being addressed, but I'm not allowed to speak because I'm not the spokesperson, like, and it feels limiting, and like people could abuse their power.
There's no language in what we've created that says anything about whether people aside from the spokesperson are allowed to speak at the General Assembly, and that language is not in here for the very purpose of addressing the concern that you just raised. Like, I think ideally, if you're at the meeting and you're not hearing your spokesperson say what you want them to say, you could, like, tap them on the shoulder and be like, remember, I wanted you to talk about this. Or the spokesperson can say, so-and-so's here from our... So-and-so's here from, this committee, and they're going to report in on what they're up to.
I'll put you back. What? Just putting you on stand. Okay, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Curtis.
I really like the idea of definitions for, like, expectations for point person and for what's being called a spokesperson. I think that's awesome. And I also like what I'm hearing about working groups having a say in how they're self-organized. I think those are two great things. I am hearing a disconnect between, I think this is where mediation is important and steps in, is that ideally, you're right. I could go up to Art's the spokesperson. I could say, Art, you forgot to mention this. And he'd be like, oh, sure. But if there is a tension between us, that might not be a reality. I might go up to Art and he might just completely ignore me. And then what? Are we going to have a fight in the middle of a General Assembly? Like, that's going to look bad for everyone. And it's going to cause a lot of confusion. And that's where mediation needs to happen. And so even though there's no language in there that says that spokesperson does have power, whether it's stated explicitly or not, just in the ability to present or not present to the group.
I feel like we have in our structure that we have there, you can always raise your hand and be like, I didn't get to do this. I mean, like I said, there is no language in there, and there is always in our General Assembly there is always general announcements too, where if something was missed, you could say it. So there's really never a time, and during general, you can always raise your hand and be like, I didn't get with my spokesperson, this was missed. I mean, I don't see a time when it would become...
To address Curtis's concern, keep in mind that this structure that we're proposing is based on a lot of, like, the structure that we've already put into place. So, like, Art, you mentioned that you could just put your finger up and do a point of fact. And the fact that an announcement isn't being spoken of is, in essence, a point of fact. So we already have some structure in place to take care of some of the concerns that are being addressed.
Would it be okay if we put that in? Like, if the working group, if a committee inside of the working group is not being heard, they can point a fact and add that?
Yes, I'm trying to figure out in my own mind language that would help you. So I'm thinking the way it's structured compared to the way our General Assemblies run right now, we'd go through the 4 spokes for announcements. I think almost there should be a 5th facilitator inquiry to the group for, is there a working group member who wasn't represented? Is there something that was left out? So anybody who is a member of a working group could say at that point,
You need to interrupt. I just want to check, was Art next on stack?
He was responding to what
He was responding to me, which I asked him a specific question.
Okay, all right, just checking.
We were trying to finish.
I was just confused.
Basically just having a period to say, did we miss anything during the recordings?
All right, do we want to talk about other concerns before we get down to the nitpicky of how people want to like friendly amend these things?
Amber, we have 3 people on stack.
Okay, can we ask about like which things they're on stack for?
I'm
just so
okay.
that we
My question was answered. I think you guys worked it out. So.
I like
I was standing there.
But I mean, I don't want to close it either because I want people to get concerned. I just want to make sure we're moving along with concerns and not just talking about the same ones. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, you had your hand up.
I did. It was kind of said already, but I just think that we should put in there or talk about like you can raise your hand and talk during the thing. Like I don't want to say no, you can't talk during this time because this is our spokesperson. That's just my opinion. I say speak. If you want to speak, speak, and do it however you can.
In response to Curtis' concerns, if you feel that like, or both of you said that, if you feel like your spokesperson isn't going to say something because of the personal relationship between the two of you or something, first of all, like you're voting that person as that already, and if you feel like they're not gonna not speak everyone's voice for them at the GA, then don't vote them as that person to be talking. I don't know, I just feel like that's kind of an odd thing to say about it.
Alright, so we'll read the last 2.
Well, actually, Angela and Odelia. And I only put Odelia after you because you spoke. Go ahead.
I just wanted to like clarify and reiterate. I think that this is being presented as a way to simplify and streamline the GA, but it is not a hard and fast rule about who has the ability to speak in the GA, because the GA is everyone's voice. So, yeah.
I guess on a different note, I'm a little curious or concerned about how we're going to transition from our current structure to this structure within 10 days and have 10 like books of like facts within 10 days and an elected spokesperson that is that job for 2 months, like starting now. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to get there to start it.
Well, everybody who's in the structure working group is willing to help, and that's why I think if we give 3 weeks, then everybody's gonna wait till the last week to do it. For like a short enough time, but a long enough time. Maybe 10 days is too short. Maybe 14 days is better. But we're trying to give a time that's like not so short that everybody has to drop everything that they're doing to redo this, but not so long that it's like not in everybody's mind, and then people keep doing business as usual. So I feel like, 10 days is just what we came up with. It could be any amount of time. And I feel like the faster we transition, and I think the better. But I feel like if 10 days is not enough, then we can always amend the.
It's not really that I don't think that 10 days is enough. I just don't know like where we'd start. But figure that out.
So, this like organizational stuff is not really what I want to be doing with our movement, but I have a lot of experience with it, and I'm more than willing to continue working most specifically as part of the structure group to help that transition happen. So I think it's a matter, in my mind, it's a matter of people who are willing and have the time to actually do the work to like make these things happen.
Well, I just wanted to respond to this, what's going on right now. But if somebody's on stack right now.
Odelia?
But I do need to leave, and I was wondering if somebody else wanted to continue taking minutes. Or I can stay, but I can. Sure. Yeah.
somebody remind me of what we were just talking about?
How we're gonna
My train
implement
transition.
How are we implementing transition?
Okay. It was more of like a suggestion. I don't know. Should I wait till friendly amendment? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any more concerns? Cool. Can we move on to friendly amendments?
So several have been stated already. One, there needs to be a second round of a proposal to finish some of what we have been talking about. Two, there would be a period of time at the end of the 4 working group report-ins just to cover anything that got missed. And there was a third one that I had in mind, but I can't remember.
Notebook?
Oh yeah, there would be a hard copy of group minutes on camp.
Again. Okay. We're talking about how we're going to transition. Okay. I think we should just empower ourselves to do it. Maybe tomorrow at the GA we could start a sign up or something for work groups. Just have all of the groups we already have and subcommittees we already have. And then if somebody wants to add something, then they can start working on the mission statement, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a good way to just have it started, and then we continue to work on it during the time that we have the transition. So that's just a suggestion.
I don't know if it's in there, but a board, I know we talked about it, but I don't know if it's in there. A board with all the meetings for all the 4 spokes. That'd be great.
You had to figure out like who's in the group before you decide when the group would meet, and then like once you know who's in the group, then you can go who's in charge of the group. It's like how do you decide? I don't know. Anyway.
I think that you could have a meeting and then people show up and those are the people who are then in the group and more. But like, it's good to meet someone.
You know, I think once it's ratified, as soon as the new working groups can meet, the better. And I mean, as many, even if you have to have 2 in a day, so half the people are there and half the people are there, the faster the better the new working groups can meet face to face, start talking about these structural changes. Because that's the only way it's going to happen, by actually doing it. I mean, there's no other way to do it but to do it. So,
Curtis, did you have something?
I'm on stack.
Oh, well.
Am I next?
You can be next on stack. We're kind of breaking the stack process
Yeah,
just
that's
a little, so can we please
very confusing.
just put up your hand? I'm looking around. I'll get you all. Go ahead.
Am I next?
Yeah.
Okay. This is giving us more work. This isn't a friendly amendment, unfortunately, other than like it's creating more work. We have enough work. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to respond to that really quick. I feel like it's not creating more work. We're trying to grow as a movement, and we're changing things as we're growing. So if this seems to work for us, then cool. If it doesn't, then we'll go back to or figure something else out. But that's our whole mission, is to grow and spread awareness.
Point of fact, we have a lot of work and not a lot of people doing it, and I think this is going to help us do that.
Yeah, just to add to that, if this would be a structured way in which we can pull people and get those numbers that we need to have less work for everyone else. To have a set up structure where, you know, it's established, like, this is how you can get involved with this group. This, no matter what, if you go to this meeting but you don't go to the GA, your message will be represented by someone. So there's multiple ways in which voices can be heard in more organized systems.
Have you, Josh?
I was wondering if, like, a friendly amendment maybe for the structure group, in addition to, like, helping each working group, you know, like, kind of being on call, like, hey, help us. Is there any way you can do, like, some kind of teach-in
on